Hey, welcome back to Grit Talks. Today we're talking with JP over at GreenCloud Defense, talking about the future of cloud technology, what it means for small to medium-sized businesses when it comes to cloud computing, talking about desktop as a service, along with the overall threats of cybersecurity in today's world. We're not only talking about some of the future tech that's out there and what's coming, but also talking about how to keep your remote workforce safe and secure. So you do not want to miss this. Stick around. All right, well, thank you everybody for hanging out with us today. So I got JP in the hot seat today from GreenCloud. GreenCloud is it's been a partner for quite a while now, and I'm glad you guys are here and hanging out with us today. So thank you so much for coming in.
Glad to be here.
Want to talk about kind of the current state of the landscape when it comes to cloud adoption. A lot of things happening, obviously, with small to medium-sized businesses. Obviously, we know the events recently with the pandemic and everything, a lot of people moving to cloud resources and things like that. Just want to see, and actually, let's back up. Let's start with just kind of who you are, JP.
Sure.
Give me a little bit of info on who you guys are, and maybe just a quick note on who GreenCloud is.
Sure, absolutely. No, and by the way, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's great to be here, by the way. It's great to be seen these days. So I'm over the sales organization at GreenCloud Defense, and as you know, we sell and distribute our products through people like yourself. So to your point, Grit has been a long-time partner of GreenCloud, so I'm greatly appreciative for that. The sales team here at GreenCloud, it looks like a lot of other traditional sales teams where you have inside and outside sales representatives, but ours is a little different in the fact that we support our partner base, folks like yourselves. We are very specific in the cloud solutions that we deploy and sell through our partners. So we don't do everything cloud. We're not in the software business. There's a lot of SaaS applications that reside themselves in the cloud, but that's not us. So we are an infrastructure as a service, backup, disaster recovery, desktop offering, and we also offer a whole host of security products as well. We've been distributing those products since 2010 through the channel, so to speak. And I believe I'm saying this correctly, I've partnered with Grit going back 7 years ago now. It's been a while. I think
you're right on that. I think it was actually, before Grit too. I think it was when Greg was Fisher, and then he went to Grit around that same time.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it would definitely be about 7 years. So, I mean, tech adoption, not just tech adoption, but like cloud adoption, it seems like 5 years ago, I was still having conversations about like what the cloud was, talking very basic, because obviously, people viewing our, they might not know all the ins and outs like what we do on here, but like when we say like the cloud, it was always kind of a scary thing. And then obviously we got accelerated 10 years into the future with the events at 2020. Could you kind of give a little bit of just an idea of kind of like what you've seen with businesses and like what in your world, because obviously you're in the cloud solutions day in and day out. What's been happening? Give us a little insight on that. Sure.
And to your point, it is really scaled. I mean, let's face it, COVID kind of was the big launch pad for a lot of solutions. But I'll kind of go back just a little bit if I can, going back to 2010, 2011. Okay. I was actually at a managed services conference. I worked for a managed services company at the time, and I was at a conference and they were talking all things cloud. And I called my buddies who actually were on the executive team over at GreenCloud, and I said, holy cow, you guys are going down this road and I want to be a part of it. And at the time, everybody thought it was just going to be hockey stick type growth in the cloud space. And to some degree, that was accurate if you think about the world of cloud computing of where we were 10, 20 years ago. But then you fast track to 2012. I joined the organization in 2013. You really thought it was going to take off by that time. And by all things considered, in the world in which we procure all of our server resources and put them in our data centers, we saw very good growth in the first handful of years that we were really on the market and in the market. And then to your point, go back 5 years ago, adoption was just like people were really transacting. I think that the fear factor of where is my data, and is my data going to be protected in a cloud?
Right.
And can that managed services company or the cloud provider even articulate where my data is going to be, those boxes began to be checked. So we were a provider that never let any data leave the United States. It was always here within the United States in one of our 6 different geographically diverse data centers. Okay, so we were always, from day one, we were able to articulate that message, and I think the comfort level in the marketplace kind of settled itself, and then COVID hit, and everybody went away. Everybody went home, right? So what we saw, especially like in the managed services space, in Q2 of that year, things went to a screeching halt because you all were trying to get your clients ready to transact, and then it was like the floodgates opened, and then everybody needed cloud again.
I can definitely relate to that because it was nonstop calls. I mean, and I got to give our team credit because us, like our business, we were already in the cloud. We're in your guys' cloud already. Right. I mean, we had no on-prem anything. So as far as like working from home and all of that, like our team was already set up for success. Like we were playing that game for already 2 or 3 years prior. And then when but again, like every in-house IT person or MSP or whoever, it was a whole game of okay, crap, we got to get you got to get people remote who've never had any experience being remote before,
100%,
and get them at least working. And then it was a lot of okay solutions, but obviously getting into a better long-term solution was the case. And I think that's what you're saying is when now your floodgates open, because I know we were calling you guys and getting different solutions in place. What were some of the big solutions that were coming out of that? Like what were we seeing people move to?
Yes, so we saw the serverless office all of a sudden become a real thing, right? The blinky lights that were suddenly down the hall in somebody's closet didn't necessarily need to be there because the employees weren't there, right? So we saw a massive shift to moving the on-premise workloads into a cloud provider such as ourselves, where we are taking on everything from file print, Active Directory services, to the adoption of desktop as a service. And one of the things that I really just saw, like, I guess a couple things really. One observation was the fact that for the people that were already operating in a cloud, whether that was using server infrastructure in the cloud or desktops, people never skipped a beat. For the people that then adopted those technologies, it did the exact, not opposite thing of what I had expected, but it really forced our hand on the research and development efforts to continue to make sure that we were staying one step ahead of all of the people that needed these sort of applications. So the need for desktops in the cloud, the need to utilize video in the cloud, and to support all of those things, it was huge. And I could go through a list of examples, but like I saw in the state of Texas, for example, we saw like the tollway billing system. So if you were going through the state of Texas, people didn't stop driving during COVID. Right. Okay. People still needed to get invoiced for obviously the tollways and whatnot. Maybe it's the invoices or just their monthly payments. The Texas tollway system, they were already set up working off of virtual desktops in the cloud. And so those folks kept processing payments, and the tollway systems never missed a beat.
Wow. So we've been talking about DaaS, or desktop as a service. Could you describe a little more about what that is?
Yeah, so the easiest example is what I tell my kids, right? So they operate off of Chromebooks in the school system. And so every day when my daughter Ava or my son Greg goes to school, they log in through their Google Chromebook. And what happens when they're logging in, they're actually utilizing a desktop experience that is controlled by the school board. So the school board controls what level of security rights that they have, admin credentials. Obviously, they don't have any, but at the end of the day, that is held at the helm of that IT administrator. So that's in the most simplistic form. That is desktop as a service. But the idea is you can publicize a desktop experience, access that with a client or a login from pretty much anywhere, and get your same kind of use case as if you would going into a physical office, logging into somebody's network.
So why would somebody want that over a traditional PC type of setup?
Okay, well, a couple reasons. I would say standardization, ease of administration. Okay, so either at the managed services level or at an IT administration level, it is very easy. It's very easy to deploy new desktops. So play make believe. You just hired 10 new employees and you need desktops for them on Monday. Your technical team could come in and work with somebody like us to deploy those 10 desktops, and they could be readily available tomorrow.
Yeah.
So ease of deployment as well.
Replication, as far as I can see that. What about, the person that decides to leave the company, or unfortunate termination, that type of stuff? Is there any benefit to having that too? Or
that happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
People come and people go. And at the end of the day, if in the event that I left the organization, somebody could shut my desktop experience off.
Yeah.
And the keys are left literally at whoever holds those keys, not at the employee. So you control the data.
Well, the same thing I think goes with theft too, right?
100%.
Somebody lose their PC, it's easy to. It's not on the actual physical device itself. It is in the cloud, and really, if that, you could basically suspend access to that device, and you can pick up something else tomorrow, and you're good to go. And it's. I believe it's almost as good as, like, you could literally, if you had a document open in that session, it would still be open, ready to go as soon as you logged in, right?
Yeah, depending on the type of desktop experience
Right.
that you elect for, right?
Right.
So I hear it and I see it, unfortunately, all the time. And we hear in the marketplace that my laptop got stolen, or I left a tablet on a subway or a train or something. Those are not like far-fetched examples. Those are real-life examples that we see happening, unfortunately, too many times. So human error still is at the top of the list of issues.
Yeah, no, I know 100%. I think it's still, human error is definitely a big part of that. Well, I think you had some good points on there, because one of the things I think that really stands out about, and I think I would argue that's probably where everything's going, right?
Yeah.
I think the big point to that too, and something to consider, is anytime you would have to upgrade a PC, for example, or Mac or whatever, there's always a process, right? And that process takes time to obviously procure that device, to then re-image everything, to load everything, all your bookmarks, whatever. Would you say it's safe to say that literally it's, as long as you got a device, I mean, it's gonna be really the same type of experience and session with pretty minimal downtime, or if ever, you know, when it comes to your desktop experience, right?
Oh, 100%. Or when it's time to upgrade the desktop experience from one operating system to maybe the newest, latest, and greatest.
Yeah.
It's very simple for your team to obviously do, and it's less cumbersome. And like you use the term re-imaging. When you image a computer, a lot of folks don't even have a clue what that means.
Right.
For those of us that work kind of in the business, you really get that, and you get a sense of how many hours it takes for your team to do that. And then if you think about the distribution of those laptops or computers back to the end user,
Right.
it's just you're taking time, or you're providing time back to that end user.
Right. Well, not only the end user, I think to the team. Anybody has their own internal IT people, or has an MSP, even on our end. I mean, time is money, right?
100%.
So anytime you can add, time back, I mean, that's a big thing, and I think that's something you guys probably really capitalize on, and you guys really provide when it comes to having some sort of cloud desktop experience.
And so we're one of the big values that we try to share with your team is, we are upholding the infrastructure in the data centers, right? And we're managing the software, the hardware, making sure that the versions are updated. So your team doesn't have to worry about that. But when your team does need to come to us and say, we need a new desktop and we need you to deploy it within X amount of minutes, hours, whatever that looks like, we can turn that around for you.
Right. I think the other thing too with IT teams and personnel, and even us, a lot of talk about cyber insurance, and companies that were originally in compliance are no longer in compliance. How is GreenCloud helping with that?
On almost a weekly basis, we are fielding questions from partners that have end users that are obviously not only applying for cyber insurance, or maybe they're reapplying for cyber insurance based on some gaps that they may have had, or maybe it's just an audit, an annualized audit that somebody is looking for that we can potentially help with. So, like back in the early days before cybersecurity was labeled cybersecurity, it was just all the tool sets that everybody deployed. We went through the process of becoming SOC 2 Type 2 certified, which helped. So people could check the box from making sure that what we expected somebody else was inspecting, so to speak. And then that has just kind of snowballed itself into the world of cybersecurity. So a lot of times when firms are going through the insurance asks, the cybersecurity asks, we can help with that from not just a SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, but we also have a security operations center offering the different technologies and tool sets that would be applicable to somebody going through that process to actually get a cyber insurance policy.
So we are seeing a greater awareness when it comes to the NIST cybersecurity framework, or it stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Are you guys seeing more companies come into compliance with that? Like, how are you guys helping companies meet those standards?
So managing the endpoint is more critical than ever because people are working from literally anywhere. I overheard somebody say just the other day, he's a software development individual who was in an airport, and he said, man, I was like doing my development underneath the stars last night, but he still has a computer. Right. He still is on Wi-Fi somewhere, so you have to protect that. And so the real life example and tying back in all the acronyms that we like to throw out, people are looking to leverage your organization and my organization for the expertise. Where somebody can go buy one engineer to do all things and buy all the products under the world doesn't necessarily mean that person can manage all the products effectively. And so what we have seen is people will look and shift their behavior to leaning on our security operations team, right, to help you all tangibly make sense of all the noise on somebody's network. And what we're doing is we're supplementing people like yourself and the client's time and talents. So we can go back to them and actually show the real news in terms of what's happening on the network at any given time. And if we see something malicious or potentially fishy, not to throw out another term, but we can make some sense of it. So it's more collaboration that I see people leaning on us for these days.